Welcome to the Objective Recovery podcast, where we talk about mental health very open-mindedly. Today, my guest is Jeremy Barr, who is very insightful, driven, and ambitious. He studied computer science and has a brain that compares to a sophisticated AI algorithm, but did not stop at being a nerd. In business, he managed diverse roles and teams in many companies, operated at million and billion-dollar scales, became a venture capitalist, and now consults countless company CEOs and investors. He is currently building what aspires to be the world's largest executive, investor, and service partner network. Jeremy and I met on social media, and what I noticed about him long before we actually started talking is how similarly we tend to think, communicate, approach problems and decisions. I wasn't always very wise about my health, though, in part because in my youth we didn't have the current level of awareness and knowledge available. So, Jeremy, you often post on social media very holistic tips to achieve success in life. So, I would love to hear a bit about your journey starting at the beginning. How were you as a child, teenager, and young adult?
Yeah, for me, I know a lot of people hear me online always talking really fast and consulting CEOs, and I can talk to a lot of different people, and I'm doing lots of videos like this. But as a younger kid, I was not this way. It was D's and F's, and I was very like antisocial. I couldn't communicate more than a sentence usually to people. I could talk at some age, I could talk like tech and business, but I couldn't talk very socially. So I was bad grades in school. My brother and sister were like A's and B's. I was D's and F's. My mom homeschooled me for 7th grade. My brain operates generally a little bit slower, which most people are not used to. Still, technically, it operates slower, but all the speed that people hear is just very. I've done so much business consulting and human analysis now that like those neural networks in my brain are just like really, really efficient, really, really fast, and that's what people hear. But if I'm thinking of something new for the first time, which rarely happens now because I feel like I've pre-calculated like every kind of conversation, human, company, whatever, my brain can go back to its more normal, like slower state, right? So D's and F's in the beginning. Mom took me out of homeschooled me for 7th grade, allowed my brain to like slow down and not move at the pace of school, whatever speed they were operating at, right? And then I was able to get A's and B's, and then she put me back into school, and I was able to get A's and B's from there because then I kind of knew how to work with my brain a little bit more. This is me retroactively analyzing that period. During that period, I just know that I just did better at homeschooling. I didn't know why, but that helped.
Interesting, because you are a great example that really big change can be achieved. Brain and the body as a whole is very flexible, and it sounds like you figured out maybe that homeschooling helped as a first step, but you figured out how to make these big changes, as people don't figure it out even until middle age or so. This is just for the viewers, so it's a good example that we can achieve really big changes. So what helped you, apart from the homeschooling, what helped you to become who you are now and to communicate the way you communicate now?
Yeah, so after the homeschooling 7th grade, I think I was a little bit better in school. I then proceeded to do my computer science degree at ASU, Arizona State University, and that was the first time I saw code. I was just used to clicking buttons. I was actually like very like dumb in that sense, where I was like, wait, there's code under here. Now it's obvious to me. So I got my computer science degree, went on to like build the Super Bowl website, do State Farm, do hospital websites and code, and beat out the second largest marketing agency in the world, and just like became really, really smart, really, successful in a lens of like engineering and management and business and things like that. Moved out to I was married and in a relationship for 10 years, and then separated from a job where I was CTO managing global teams at 22 I was managing that around 22 and doing that for like 5 years as CTO. And then
So
at
you got
27.
into you did not stop at basically just doing the computer science and programming. You by yourself you were drawn to like management positions in the beginning. Is that how
Yeah,
it worked?
yeah, yeah. And it was like junior and senior year of computer science degree where I was doing like super website and all these different like high brands in the world, and then became like CTO right as I graduated, became CTO at a company and was there for about 5 years, managing global teams. So roughly 22 to 27 years old, 5 years, where I was that CTO. And then at 27, I had split from the person I was with because we were together from 17 to 27 years old, and we were married for like the last 3 years of it, but 10 years living together. My mom had left to Guatemala with my brother at like age 17. If I rewind back a little bit, she wanted to travel the world. She wanted me to go with her. I said I wanted to stay. She was very supportive of me. So
That's
mom
so
and
important because again, it's when I speak with others about mental health and people who have actually mental health issues, very often part of the reason why those develop is because they did not have support from parents from a family of origin early in life. So it sounds like your mom was very supportive and managed to basically offer you tools and solutions that actually worked for you. So I relate to this very much because in my case it was my father and we were very close. So it was really I will be forever grateful for all the many different things that I learned from my father and even just the support. So it really counts. It matters a lot in our
yeah,
development.
I think it matters a lot too. I think, I didn't realize how much the parental support affected me because like now that I consult humans and CEOs and everything, and I see a lot of the challenges. One of the factors that can contribute, right, is like the parental environment and how much they supported and how much you were supported generally in life, right? And so my mom and dad were very, very supportive of me. I was like at one point struggling with math, probably like third grade or something like that, doing multiplication division. I remember visually at a dinner table, and I was like crying to my dad or whatever as a kid and couldn't do it. And he's like, he said a statement to me is like, as long as all you do is try, that's all that matters. And I remember that statement for like 25 years. As long as all I do is try, and it calmed me down in the moment. I was able to focus. I was able to do it, right. So I was like, I guess I was pressurizing myself, right. So that statement was really, really impactful. Mom taking me out of school for seventh grade was really impactful. Then her supporting me when she went with my younger brother to Guatemala. She likes to travel the world. My brother wanted to start a business. He's down there now. And then I was like left by myself because I wanted that. At 17 years old, I was then a waiter at Golden Corral. And then I was going to, my junior year in high school, which is exactly the time when I met the woman that I was with for 10 years. And so I was just like living on my own. Was with her, and then we went through all of college together, where I was doing my computer science degree. She was doing dietetics. And then 27 years old, after being with her for 10 years, and being in Arizona for 10 years, then we had split. I was just more of like a go, go, go kind of personality, and we weren't a fit in that sense. She wanted more home life. I wanted more like, let's go, do what I'm doing now, which is like build the world's largest investor executive service partner network and, impact the world at 3 billion people scale. I didn't know that about myself, right, at 17 years old when I met her, but I knew more at 27 that I wanted to go do things. And it was even simple things as like, I want to go do this activity. And, she happened to like more home life. And I was like, let's go snowboarding. Let's go do this. Let's go do that. Or let's add like 2 new friends to our circle. And she just didn't have that preference, right? And so I was like, okay, we're not a fit. And so divorced there and moved from Arizona to San Diego, started like essentially a whole new friend life, whole new everything. And because I was like in that relationship for 10 years and didn't really have to go and develop a skill for like talking, and I was like super nerd, computer science degree, managing people globally when I was in that relationship with her. And then I had to go and build a whole new skill set because like then I would go to the new job, and people would invite me out to like the bars or whatever to hang out, and we're out there hanging out for 2 hours, and for 2 hours I'm at a bar and I'm not saying a single sentence, and people would keep asking, are you okay? Multiple times they would say, are you okay? And I had to think in my head, why are they asking this? Oh, because I'm not talking and everyone else is. And that's when I started to create what I call my conversation algorithm. What taught me that, like, instead of saying 2 sentences in 2 hours, I was like, okay, I need to practice. Can I talk for 5 minutes, 15 minutes, 30 minutes? So I created a conversation algorithm in my head just to get my conversation length up to about 36 hours. And then from that point, I went into like creating a human algorithm. I was like, okay, why do people talk a long time? Who's ambitious? Who's not? Who wants kids? Who wants this? I made a human algorithm to assess every single kind of human, and then went into where I was hanging out with 300 friends a month. I had like 50-person volleyball groups. Like I made all the friends. I figured out how to have a conversation with people. I would go up to like a random venue or bar or something in the city, and I'd go be like, I'd just walk up to a table, start making friends with people. This is at 27 years old. I'm like creating my whole new life after being CTO, after managing teams of people, but couldn't say more than a sentence in a social settings. I would then go make a whole bunch of friends with random people, curate people and everything, and then like make 50-person volleyball on Wednesdays, 30 people playing kickball, going snowboarding, traveling to different states, traveling out to different countries, Paris and things like that. I was then hanging out with 300 friends a month. I had a conversation algorithm, a human algorithm, and then started managing teams of people and moving up into director positions and going on from there. So long answer to that part.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like you like to jump extremes in extreme ways. It's probably you know this about yourself. That's my impression, at least, on the stories. This is actually it's wonderful that you can do this, because this is one thing that I definitely don't hear often. But it's very funny, because what you just described about being a nerd and just being very technical in conversation. That's another thing that I can absolutely 100% relate to. That my youth, when I was young. And that's why I went to science, not computer science, but I studied biology and other sciences. And so I was so like focused on that. I had very similar issues, actually, talking with people. I was not even interested in people. I don't know if that was a part of your story in the beginning. I was more interested in actually the concepts and those studying what I studied. So, and then it's very similar. It's so funny, and also the kind of jumping in extreme ways. And so, in your case, was there anything in this first part of your development that you found particularly challenging in learning how to communicate, or any way that was difficult for you and you struggled?
Yeah. So when I decided at 27 years old, starting the new life in San Diego, that I wanted to start talking in conversations and build out that conversation algorithm, right? I was like, okay, well, I have my computer science degree. I'm really good at programming things and doing all that. So I thought like, let me use that strength because I'm used to making algorithms for human processes. And so at that point, I was like, well, let me just make a conversation algorithm, right? And so even though I had that initiative to do that over the next like 2-3 years, and it took 2-3 years to build up to where I was hanging out with 300 friends a month, mathing it out, like doing normal what's normal to me, but crazy to other people. Over a year, 2 years, it was a struggle because I would say, okay, I need to go into this conversation and try to make it last 5 minutes. And so I had to, like, I was like analyzing conversations. So a large part of it, I still had to, now that I recognized the quietness was awkward, because I didn't have that recognition before, then I would like feel awkward in the 5, 10, 15 minutes, 20 minutes while I'm not talking and I'm just absorbing. And so I was like, okay, what are people talking about? And as soon as I heard food or movies, I immediately thought algorithm style. I was like, okay, I need to go watch all the movies in the world or have all the food in the world. Okay, well, let me think of a math algorithm heuristic for that. Okay, well, what are the top movies and what are the top foods? So then I looked up and watched top movies, top TV shows, top foods, and then I brought that to the next conversation and I was able to engage. And I was slowly able to increase my KPI that I had for myself in my head of the minutes that I could have a conversation with one or more people. So that was a struggle because it took a year or two of me failing in conversations over and over and over, and me just saying, this is what I'm going to work on. That was a very long and challenging process. And I kept having to be like, this is embarrassing because now I felt the awkwardness and I felt the embarrassment at that time. And I was like, this is embarrassing. I can't believe I'm going to keep doing this, but I have to because like otherwise, like I'm not gonna be able to engage in the way that I want to.
And did you find that you had to be selective about the people you engaged with, or you just learned to basically communicate with anyone? Because in my case, I still tend to be very selective, and I have a long history of being very drawn to people who are similar to me. That's why I pointed that out in the beginning, and definitely I recognize it very. It's my pattern in how we do things when we talk, and then the similarities, and but it's in the long run that can be very, very limiting. So how was it in your case?
I don't know if it was a year, 2 years, because I'm pretty bad with time, but like in the first year or two, I would say it was all about the conversation algorithm. And so I didn't have any notion of human differences like I do now. I'm very acute
Okay.
now. But in the conversation algorithm, I was focused on my KPI, extend minutes that I can talk to somebody and that I can talk to anybody. So I was actually just trying to talk to anybody and everybody. It's only when I heard the same like repeated concepts over and over from people, I started to identify patterns. And I could easily have a conversation with anyone, anywhere. But then I just started saying, okay, well, I've achieved my KPI of long conversations, really long ones, 36 hours, like overnight kind of things, not sleeping, whatever, with people that I really hit it off with. And then I turned it into like, I just was thinking to myself, always analytical. And I was like, okay, well, now I want to figure out why am I having these conversations and should I actually have them that long or should I actually shorten them and have like an impact? Well, then what do I care about impact for? And so then that's what prompted me to come up with the human algorithm. And then I started analyzing people, and then I started filtering people after I started analyzing the human algorithm. So it was in phases.
Did you use any tools? Or, for example, in my case, I used that. That's part of the reason I got into neuroscience, to basically build myself, to help myself. Did you use anything like that for building this human algorithm for yourself? Any like established knowledge, science, anything, or you just intuitively figured it out on your own?
I did it on my own. I don't think it was intuitive. I very strictly like created variables in my head because that's how I write code. I created variables in my head, I created numbers, and I just made my own custom algorithm inside my head. I don't think it was a feeling thing or an intuition thing, and I didn't look at any other way of doing it. Like now it makes sense. Like I could go and say, how do people analyze people? How do people do conversations? I'd probably read books. I literally just did it from scratch.
So it's basically it's one thing that I often myself in my story at least encountered is that this very like super scientific, super rational thinking style can be very good to can like accelerate, getting to goals and, especially business science and so on. But it can cause a lot of problems in especially closer human relationships. So I wonder if you experience that. So for example, I struggled a lot, and I sometimes still do in my intimate relationships, my romantic relationships, unless the partner is also kind of similar in some ways. I figured out that it's not good if it's too similar, because I had that as well, and then it's too much. We have all the same strengths, same weaknesses, but it's very hard to move on from that. So did you have anything like that when there's this hyper rationality and algorithmic thinking cause those
Yep.
issues?
Yep. So as I was like hanging out with 300 friends a month and like, building longer term relationships, multi-year relationships, which some of the people that I met during that phase, like I'm friends with them today. It's, 8, 9 years later, whatever.
Yeah.
And I went through like massive dating phase because it's like, okay, I had exited a 10-year relationship, a marriage, and from 17 to 27. So now it's like, okay, literally from scratch, I can, go and explore. And so between the longer dating relationships, between the friendships that were short term and long term, I would see the emotional side more so of like that wasn't as logical as my brain or whatever, and that maybe more so, definitely more so with women, and that's where I was like, and then I started analyzing that, right, as part of the human algorithm. I'm like, okay, well, if this isn't a logical decision, where's the emotion coming from? And then I would analyze what I more now so talk about online is like, what any human, if your emotion is it coming from a trauma?
Yeah.
Or is it coming from maybe just more of a DNA level because it's more built towards nurturing? And so, there's different ways that humans are built, right? From a DNA level up, right? So, yes, I did encounter that, and I did start to like account for that and even calculate the emotions that people think you can't like calculate. But it's like, when you look at traumas, for example, right? Like, what is the trauma? How do you define it? We won't get
Yeah.
too deeply into that, but at a high level, I'm like, okay, well, if a parent treated you bad, or a boyfriend treated you bad, or a girlfriend treated you bad, or like something happened with your boss or whatever, right? There's some sort of numerical way that experience can affect you sensory wise, affect your brain neurons, and the neurons are just a complex form of like whatever we do in programming, and it's weighted, just like a weighted algorithm, weighted neurons, etc. So even though it's a complex number of variables, it is still a like pretty definite set of reactions that are going to happen, even if they're too complex to trace. You can see a lot of heuristically, you can see a lot of what happens. So I was able to kind of like trace and see that, and then
It can be so fun in my experience too, if you have a good partner for this, what you mentioned, that to analyze together with a close friend or intimate partner, how this works. And I really love, for example, to use our relationship, the two of us, and then you basically dissect what's going on between us. And but many people, I find that they are not open to this, because they tell me things like they are not a scientific experiment. And this is just one example for that type of feedback. So that's how I learned. I learned myself to kind of temper it because many people just don't like it's just too much. But it's good that if you are able to find to identify the people, the compatible ones, and build relationships both in personal life and in business. And I know that in business you are very selective as well. And the network that you are building, you really think about who you call into it. So, so I would like to maybe make a jump into that. So, what you are doing now in business, and so it's definitely super ambitious, and it's very intense. I see, you're posting on social media like multiple times every day, and it just goes very well, but it's super intense, and I think it's probably requires someone like that always needs to be extra careful to balance that lifestyle, that pace with healthy living. So tell us a bit about how what you think about, health and how you maintain your health, what tools you use, anything that you have in your toolkit.
Yeah, yeah. So I think a lot of people rush and stress in life, even when they don't have an ambitious goal, let alone when they do have an ambitious goal. And so for me, looking at the health perspective and how I kind of treat my daily life, which is very calm and casual. Online, it looks like I'm very fast paced. I talk fast on the videos. I'm very focused. I post a lot every day. And I do have an ambitious goal, so I do want to do a lot, right? But I do that out of fun. And so there's actually, what people aren't necessarily seeing or they're not seeing because I'm not like putting my live video game streaming online because I don't do that. I play video games. I watch movies. I take walks. There's 8 hours a day that I'm just relaxed and not doing anything. I work in spurts. And especially since I've built up a defensible skill set to where like I can get on with CEOs, consult them in 15-minute calls, and I can do 40 to 80 of these a week, even up to 90, depending on, who I'm doing every 2 weeks with, who I'm doing once a month with, who I'm doing weekly calls with, and depending on the schedule that I have, right? So and people will pay like $1,000 a month for weekly 15-minute calls, and in those 15-minute calls I can advise them on these smart path decisions that make them $100,000, $1,000,000. They're a $50 million CEO, or they have a $1 million or $3 million business, or they have a $150 million business. So because of all of that, because it's a defensible skill set, nobody's seen as many companies as I have. I can advise that in a short amount of time and give them a massive result. I'm able to also charge that $1,000 a month per client, which means I can work 20, 30 hours a week and make easily 100K a month. It's really easier. And then I'm only working 20, 30 hours a week, depending on which week it is. And it's like, and so that allows me to have a really relaxed, calm day, spend most of my time on media because now I'm hiring other consultants to do what I'm doing. I'm training them in the special way that I grow companies. Nobody else grows companies like I do. I'm using my algorithm mindset, plus the whole 300 friends a month social. Plus I've been at $1 million, $1 billion companies, wrote AI on a project with the FBI and Secret Service. So I'm using all of these skills into a custom like 4 billion to 10 billion variable function that I can put on any company and optimize everything from the micro expressions and eye movements of sales calls and of teamwork projects, and the CTRs and CVRs of your ads, your landing pages. And I've done $100,000 a day media buying budgets. So I just can really quickly compute all that stuff, and that just enables me to work very bursty each day. I get on the calls, I advise CEOs. They're seeing something for the first time in their company. They're at $50 million. And they're like, I've never been at this phase before. I've been successful up to $50 million. It's very successful. But how do I get to 70 or 100 or how do I make $1 billion plan? And for me, I've done whatever advice they need that day. I've already done it 8 times that day in 6 different countries, right? And this allows me to just go quickly on these calls and then get off and just go spend time with my girlfriend, go have fun, go do whatever I want. And so for me, even with the ambitious goal to go and impact at least 3 billion people globally, and I have the math of how many companies we need to do, how I'm going to scale it with software and consulting people that I'm hiring, and software is going to be a massive scale, and AI is coming up, and I have a whole map of how the world's progressing country by country, product by product, etc. That enables me to take on what I think is the most ambitious thing on the planet and be extremely casual about it.
Yeah, definitely looks like. So it's basically what we see as if someone follows you on social media, what we don't see is that you actually do have a balanced life. And you do a lot of so you what we call what we when we say it's we work smart, not work hard necessarily. That's exactly what you are doing. This is exactly the area where I made mistakes, really big mistakes when I was young, because I was also very ambitious always. But when I was very young, I had started really insane projects when I, for example, had to work night shifts and it was very erratic. It was all self-inflicted. It was not that, someone told me to work in this way. I chose it. But, my sleep schedule was all completely chaotic, and I didn't pay attention to my diet and exercise and all that. So those were my mistakes. And so it's just so good now that since we have so much awareness and people speak about mental health and health and wellness much more openly these days than, let's say, 20 years ago. It's much easier to integrate this. And so do you have a special like exercise routine, diet, or anything like practical lifestyle features that you can recommend or that works for you?
Yeah, yeah. So I wake up, me and my girlfriend, 7 days a week, no exceptions for the weekends. We wake up every day, 4 a.m. We have our morning schedule, which includes an hour of gym time, an hour of walking and reading and going over the global news and the technology news and business news of the day. And then it's like eggs every day. There was one time I posted that I eat 168 eggs a month. I have eggs every morning, steak and chicken every day, basically the same meals all the time. I can have steak and chicken every single day. So it's eggs, steak, chicken. Those are like the 3 meals. And it's just different flavors, literally all 3 of those, lots of different flavors mixed in. But it's very consistent. And we actually eat the same things, except she doesn't do the eggs. But just for like allergies and things like that are in it or whatever. But otherwise, like we eat the exact same things. We like it, and we just go day in and day out. Now, I don't recommend everybody to have that same of a diet. We just actually like it that way. We did that even separate to meeting each other. We just happened to meet when we met. We were like, oh wait, we have the same thing. We both. It's like, so it's always eating at 9 a.m., 12 p.m., and 4 p.m. That way, we will be going to bed at 8 p.m. And between 4 and 8, essentially, that's time to digest to where you get a better quality sleep. So we are rigorous with those wake and sleep times. We've seen the research on like if you deviate your wake and sleep time by even 30 minutes, you're going to compromise your decisions the next day. And so where I go out and advise CEOs, I won't tell them they have to wake up at 4 a.m. But if they want to wake up at 8 or 10 a.m., that's fine. They just have to be consistent with the wake and sleep times because that dramatically affects performance. And then eat healthier food generally. Carbs going to make generally people sleep. I'm not going to be a nutritionist to people, but I am going to say what I've seen will work, what works for us, what works for a lot of my clients. So yes, the sleep, exercise, and nutrition is really, really important for us. It affects everything from mood to decision quality. It's like one of the most important things. So yeah.
So it sounds like you live a very structured lifestyle. Is that correct? So it's highly structured. So that's very important. Many people find it difficult to achieve that because they give in to the random events of life and paying attention to whatever distractions, and you must also have a way to actually avoid those distractions, which I think it's a very it's how we regulate our attention, because there are so many attention traps these days. So yeah, structure. So that's basically the key word. So it's figure out what works personally for you. It sounds like you are also lucky that your girlfriend, you met someone who is very compatible in this way and likes similar things, and you guys can figure it out. That can also be a challenge because two people, even if they just one wants to wake up early, the other late, and it's all over the place, it's very hard to coordinate. So Jeremy, thank you so much for sharing all this today. Very last question is that how can people contact you and learn more about you?
People can find me. I keep it pretty simple. Find me on LinkedIn. Jeremy Barr, LinkedIn. We'll say that I'm CEO of SFGN, Super Founder Global Network. That'll be pretty easy to identify. I'm always on LinkedIn, and I keep it simple from there. Any other links that I'm going to be posting for people, they can find it from there, and then go to like our websites and everything. But that's the main area where I'm putting out media and anything that I'm doing. So
okay, yeah, okay. So LinkedIn, that's the main platform. Okay, thank you again very much. And just for the viewers, actually, I'm part of one of Jeremy's groups, and I really enjoy being there. So we learn so many we have very interesting discussions discussions, and we support each other and so on. So it definitely works, this network. So I wish you all the best of success, and enjoy your life. That basically you are really a good example for someone who has built their life and success on their own, because many people just born into it, or they receive it in other ways, but you are very self-made, it seems like. So congratulations on this, and thank you again.